Destiny 1 raids were all phenomenal, but to most Destiny veteran players, everyone agrees that there's one indisputable winner. On September 20th, 2016, Destiny 1 was introduced to Year 3, Rise of Iron, an already jam-packed DLC and my favorite of Destiny 1. Speaking of favorites, let me know your guys' favorite Destiny 1 expansion in the comments and subscribe for more. It's the best way to support me and it really helps out. Rise of Iron gave us Year 1 reprised raids, Year 1 raid weapons in the form of exotics, and this finally brought Arc, Void, and Solar Burns back to primary weapons. It also brought us Siva. Quick background lore on Siva. Siva was created by Braytech, who made Rasputin and even Cade 6. The basic lore of Siva for Rise of Iron was that the Iron Lords wanted to use it for humanity and control it, but it went incredibly wrong, and most of the Iron Lords, besides Salad, died after trying to stop it. Seriously, why couldn't they kill off Lord Saladin instead? They did stop it for a little bit until we had to come back in and destroy it once more in the campaign after killing the Siva Iron Lords. There's a whole story and much more lore here, like how Felwinter was Rasputin's son and Rasputin had to lure them into the tomb so we could kill them all, which is where we get Felwinter's lie from. But go watch a Bife or an Evanef video for that. I'm just here to tell you guys what the best raid was. Wrath of the Machine would release on September 23rd of 2016, a mere 3 days after Rise of Iron dropped. It received partial backlash because you could overgear yourself far above the 360 minimum light level, and at the time the pinnacle was 400 light level. Crazy how we're now 2010 now, and wow, mold. Players overgeared by grinding strikes and farming 3 of coins exotic drops. Man, Bungie, bring this back, please. Destiny 1, how is it so much better? So now that we know this, the raid has begun. Players spawn in the Foundry 113 on Earth site with a massive machine in front of them. Upon going farther forward, you would see beams of electricity that you could run through and get a voltage rising buff maxing out at 4 stacks. You had to grab this electricity and dunk into 3 stations around the arena on the left, middle, and right sides. After the first dunk, Vosik would spawn. There would be a massive volt-eating shank that also spawned, and if you let him get to the station, he would eat all the energy, resetting any progress. Once you dunked enough of the charges, there were these Siva charges, acting as nuclear orbs that you had to throw at the boss to take off his overshield for damage. Already, this raid is already standing out. This was the first raid in Destiny to have a boss damage phase in the entrance encounter. Vault of Glass had plates, Crota had lamps, and Kingsfall had the Court of Oryx. The only thing about this boss was he kinda couldn't be killed. Not here at least. That would be saved for the next encounter. After traversing through one of the cooler jumping sections of Destiny 1, I know I'm kind of glazing this raid, but for some reason, I genuinely enjoyed this jumping puzzle because it was such a giant area as we were used to, but this one was smaller and more confined area, and I enjoyed that. So after this came the actual Vosik boss fight. In a Siva-infested arena with the most monitors I've ever seen from one setup. I don't know what Vosik was gaming here, but he was gaming. Vosik was there to actually fight you. Before I talk more about this, let me first explain how it works. You had to shoot ads for a bit, and then 3 bombs would drop from the ceiling. You had to use these 3 like in the first encounter and chuck them at Vosik, and this would take off his shield, enabling the DPS phase. For DPS, players used Year 3 Gallahorn, snipers, and Sleeper Simulant. Or for a 1-phase meta, you could just get in his face and start shotgunning him. After the DPS phase was over, panic would ensue. As Siva density critical would reach the room, the key here is to go into glowy rooms on the sides of the arena and then shoot the lock on the door, closing it, preventing you from wiping. Rinse and repeat, but monitors. Sometimes a monitor would light up, and if you didn't shoot this monitor in time, it would result in a wipe, adding an extra layer of panic into this raid. Someone normally was always on monitor watch duty and would always call that out, so it wasn't too bad, but it still made this raid a lot more fun. The vibe of this boss fight was so different from anything we have in Destiny 2 in my opinion. Something about it just made it so fun and just got everyone excited for the rest of the raid. Like, if this is the first boss, how could they possibly top this? But they still managed to do that with the dreaded, fan favorite, and awesome encounter, the Death Zamboni. This encounter takes place on top of the Cosmodrome wall, starting with the Death Zamboni mauling its way towards you. You would break parts of it on the front, and then shoot its face, and then hop on the Zamboni and ride it to the next phase. Yeah, looking back, it didn't seem as cool as it was back then, but back then this was insanely cool. But we don't have anything like this in Destiny 2 nowadays. The closest we've ever gotten to this is the payload in Vow, which is really lame compared to this, not gonna lie. But after this, you would go through the next wall, smash some ads, and then you would carry a drive shaft, warhead, and engine block all the way to the Zamboni. In order to do this properly, you needed to get on top of the Zamboni and kill a captain. Doing this would deploy ramps so that the people carrying those parts could get on. This is because when you would carry these objects, you would become encumbered, which means you can't jump and you only had about 10 seconds with it. You had to get on and then put them in the corresponding spots, drive shaft in the front right, warhead in the middle, and engine block to the back left. And by the way, all of this was happening in 2.5 minutes. If you didn't do it by then, you would die. Nowadays we have timers for this, but back then there was no timer. You just went and no one was counting for you. It was so awesome. Carrying the parts there was also no easy feat. You had captains, dregs, vandals, shanks, and ships all shooting you while you were getting slowed. You even had a fallen walker spawn at the very last spot. You also had to traverse through multiple balance beams, adding an extra layer of difficulty because controller, you know. This encounter has the intensity Destiny players have always longed for. Due to this, it was the most beloved encounter of this whole raid, besides maybe the boss. Once players did this though, we got what we've wanted for this whole entire raid. Ride this thing off of the map. We saw this in the trailer, so everyone kind of expected it, but it was even cooler in person. This was damn near the peak of every Destiny 1 Raiders raid experience, and it just gave us so much joy back then. It was truly a you had to be there moment, but it gave us even more joy when during this next transition, we saw Randall the Vandal. Randall was a year 1 Vandal in the Cosmodrome who for some reason had a crazy amount of health for no reason, so players nicknamed him Randall the Vandal. Bungie brought him back as Randall the Perfected. He was not perfect because after wasting all your ammo on him, you were rewarded with nothing except the thrill of seeing your goat once more. I miss you, Randall. We hardly get nods to community things like this anymore, and it's just truly a testament to show how much Bungie actually used to care. I miss you, Randall. And now it's time for the final boss. Aksis, but phase 1 of Aksis, not where we actually kill him, because why not? This encounter was also sick because let's start with the super cool Siva filled room. Starting off, finding this boss was the most creepy, eerie, and mysterious thing. The atmosphere of this raid was just amazing, especially in this final boss room. Aksis was introduced literally like a horror movie villain, and it was so cool. This encounter has Siva all over the place and needed 2 players on the left, middle, and right side to do this, involving captains that gave us Scorch, Void, and Arc cannons. You had to use this cannon to kill a corresponding servitor, pick up that Siva bomb, and then chuck it at the Siva points around the boss. For the first round, you know, the first 2 rounds were pretty normal. It was like 2 or 3. And then on the last round, there were 7 bombs to throw. And on top of this, you had to get them all in time. If you even missed one, well, you know, death. And after this, the first day raiders thought they were done. But they were not, because Aksis Phase 2, another fan favorite. And this fight was also intense, filled with timers, fun mechanics, and the Destiny community claims that this is the best designed raid encounter in all of Destiny. Better than anything in Destiny 2, which might be a bit controversial. Let me know what you guys think in the comments. But this fight was insane. Do the same thing with the captains and the servitors as last time, but this time 3 people had the empowerment buff. Throw the bombs at him in the center before he wipes you, and then his shield would break. Aksis would then teleport somewhere, and you needed 1 empowered player to jump on his back and interact with him to use the empowerment to stun the boss, lengthening your DPS phase. Once this one was over, he would teleport to different sides and do the same thing, and if you missed it, your DPS phase was over. Typically, you had 1 empowered and 1 non-empowered player per left, middle, and right. After this, you would have to run back to these light plates in the back of the map and not die to the Siva density Aksis would unleash. A lot of players here actually use the Scorch cannons to do DPS here. This is awesome because Scorch cannons back then actually did sufficient damage, and nowadays they're kind of useless and we hardly ever see them anymore. For DPS other than that, players use Snipers, Sleeper, and Darkdrinker to hit all of the legs at once. You could do the same thing with Thermite grenades and hit them all, and this did a significant amount of damage. It was kind of broken. Aksis was then cleared after a tense final stand and an amazing boss fight. But even more than the raid, the loot was amazing too. Every weapon had a trait perk that allowed these weapons to do more damage to Fallen. The shotgun was good, the fusion was good, the auto rifle was amazing, the scout rifle was amazing, the pulse was pretty good, the hand cannon was kind of a letdown. The sniper was amazing, the rocket was okay, and the machine gun was very good having triple tap. I could go over all the perks for these weapons and why the armor was so good. Just know everything's probably in Destiny 2 in one way or another. The armor though, it did look amazing with the ornaments, and the ship was sought after, and I mean this ship was amazing. And then of course we got introduced to Outbreak. Outbreak was the secret exotic added in this raid with an insane exotic quest involving an incredible amount of mathing and just such a good weapon. So good that they even had to bring it back for Destiny 2. Wrath of the Machine would return in Age of Triumph, also to get soloed by every encounter with people who still play this raid, still speedrun it, and people who still love this raid. The environment was so different, the atmosphere was so amazing and tense. It was a fast-paced raid with a decent skill ceiling, and lets the raid be super engaging for almost any player. Everyone always had to be doing something, everyone always felt on edge. Aksis is an amazing fight, Siege Engine is so fun and intense, Vosik was fast-paced with a super fun DPS phase, but unfortunately, Bungie most likely will not be bringing this back. But let me know in the comments what your thoughts were on this raid and your favorite memory of Wrath of the Machine. If you did enjoy, please like and subscribe. It's free and it's the easiest way to support me. Thank you for watching. I love you guys, and I hope to see you in the next one.